And our next guest this morning is Mr. Matej Šimalčík, Executive Director of Central European Institute of Asian Studies. Sir, a pleasure to have you on the program. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. All right, a big trip by President Xi to Europe, starting in France, then Serbia, and then Hungary. Now, in both Serbia and Hungary, we really saw the red carpet rolled out for Mr. Xi. Here we just saw images of the meetings in Hungary. It seemed like Mr. Orban was treating Mr. Xi like a king. Now, why this amazing reception by the Hungarian government?
Well, for China, Hungary is currently its best friend within the European Union. The relationship is considered as an important one, both in China and in Hungary. For Hungary, the relationship with China allows Mr. Orban to present it as an alternative to cooperation with Western countries and rely on China as a source of funding for various projects which would otherwise be probably more difficult to fund from European sources, for example, given stricter legal constraints. Over the years, we've seen a significant influx of Chinese investment into Hungary, especially recently into the automotive sector and the battery sector, which of course allows Hungary to transition its domestic automotive industry and maybe gain some advantage over other countries in the region, which are a little bit slower in transitioning these sectors. Still, this type of visit and reception carries a lot of symbolic value as well, allowing especially China and President Xi Jinping to present it domestically within China for the purposes of domestic propaganda and present the collaboration with Hungary as an exemplary cooperation with a European country which remains friendly to China, even though it is rather an outlier in its positions on China compared to other, especially EU member states, which have grown much more critical over the past few years, firstly due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and then over China's role in providing various forms of support to Russia during its ongoing warfare against Ukraine.
And reflecting on this grand European tour by Xi Jinping, now many try to compare the visit to France with the one to Serbia and Hungary, and one cannot help but wonder, and in fact many analysts do, if we are not facing any Trojan horse theory. And some speculate in fact that China's engagement with Serbia and Hungary could be a Trojan horse strategy. In other words, China might use its close ties with these two countries as a gateway to expand its influence in Europe. In fact, for instance, the UK is already mentioning that perhaps they would want some manufacturing of their own by China having it in their own country. So this theory also raises questions about the true intentions behind China's investments. What do you think about this?
Yes, there's of course a lot of security concerns when it comes to this type of overtly cordial relationship with China, especially on part of Hungary, which is an EU member state that has at its disposal a veto power in issues of common foreign and security policy, which were in the past actually used by Hungary for the sake of benefiting China when it came to votes on resolutions and sanctions critical for China. And Hungary has actually been praised for this role by various Chinese academics in light of the current visit of Xi Jinping to Budapest. Similar role could be potentially played by Serbia in the future, should Serbia at some point become an EU member state. Which would, of course, make China's position that much easier, because it would be able to rely not just one country wielding a veto power, but two. Still, at the same time, this is a risk for Serbia itself and for its prospects of future EU membership, given that closer ties to China and welcoming of various investment projects from China and political initiatives from China might make it more difficult for Serbia to meet the various membership criteria. And thus, it may make it much more difficult in the future to actually join the EU.
All right, and so apparently, the partnership between Hungary and China, they've entered what's called all-weather comprehensive strategic partnership in the new era. That's the title of this partnership, and about 18 cooperation agreements are meant to be signed. Do we have any details on what agreements have been signed thus far?
There's been a lot of talk about new economic projects to be implemented together with China, especially when it comes to railway infrastructure. In addition to the so far flagship project of China-Hungary partnership, which was the Budapest-Belgrade railway, we will probably see the implementation of the railway bypass of Budapest, the so-called V0 circle, which would allow cargo trains to bypass Budapest and make cargo transport more quick. And also high-speed rail line connecting Budapest city center with the Budapest airport. Although this railway will have a different status compared to other railways in Hungary, as it will be operated by a private entity and will not be part of the same sort of payment schemes and will be more expensive for consumers to use, which of course raises concerns of what will be its utilization. Other than this, there's also talk of new projects in the automotive sector. There's expectation that the new automotive projects will be announced when it and potentially to be implemented in the city of Pest. Other than this, of course, we see this sort of upgrade, which is an important in terms of political collaboration. Recently, in this political cooperation sphere, we've seen, for example, a brand new collaboration with China in the security sector, where China and Hungary recently signed an agreement on a police collaboration, which would allow Chinese policemen to patrol in Hungary, be it in tourist hotspots favored by Chinese tourists, or potentially to keep tabs on Chinese large diaspora within Hungary.
And having that in mind, how do you think these initiatives might impact now other European countries? Do we see any correlation? Do you think that it might impact now other European countries in the future?
Of course, there might be an impact. Just for example, when we consider the automotive sector and the influx of Chinese investment into production of EVs and batteries, that could have potential ramification for the entire EU single market. As we know, EU Commission is currently investigating the EV production sector within China, whether it's receiving unfair subsidies that would potentially allow EU to target Chinese EV producers with tariffs to sort of make sure that European producers who don't receive this sort of unfair advantage will remain competitive. Of course, when Chinese companies are increasingly localizing their production for the European market within the EU, it will make it much more difficult to implement any sort of tariffs, because these would be products made in EU and thus they would not be eligible for this type of tariff treatment. And then as a result, they could also have a negative impact on the competitiveness of other European producers.
All right, and just a final question: can Orban and his government expect some sort of kickback from the European Union regarding all of these decisions?
Of course, this is always the question when it comes to Hungary-China relationship, that what kind of impacts it will have on Hungary from the point of view of the EU. So far, over the years, we didn't really see that big of a reaction from EU institution towards Hungary when it comes to collaboration with China. On the other hand, what we've seen was that Mr. Orban was skillfully using the Chinese card for the sake of his own negotiations with Brussels when it came to resolving other issues of concern, such as potential sanctions over rule of law backsliding in Hungary. So maybe this will be what we will see again, that Orban will try to use this to secure some concessions from the EU for the sake of limiting any sort of negative treatment from the EU.
But I think that also one thing is certain here, that Xi Jinping's visit, I feel like, highlighted China's growing role in Europe, impacting also the regional dynamics and alliances. Thank you so much for joining us here on TVP World and sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having me. Goodbye.
Thanks very much, sir.